Are you ready for a career upgrade? One where you are valued and respected for your expertise, where you get to use your strengths every day, where you're doing work that matters, where you have healthy boundaries, and where you're paid really freaking well. And not only that, but you get to use your privilege to open doors and support others in their pursuit of their own upgraded careers. Well, if that sounds good, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Nicole Case, and after a decades long career in corporate HR, I'm sharing my behind the scenes insider knowledge on how you can upgrade your own career and succeed in this wild corporate world. Each episode will have practical, actionable takeaways that you'll be able to implement right away with some healthy doses of encouragement and maybe a kick in the pants or two. Plus, you'll hear from other amazing women who have upgraded their own careers on their terms. So pour yourself a favorite beverage and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Upgraded Career Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Case, and today we are talking about how to prevent a toxic workplace if you are a leader. So last week we heard from Jessica Sweet on how to heal from burnout and toxic workplaces. But if you are a leader, I know that you want to do what you can to prevent that from ever happening ever in your own organization. Well, many times toxic workplaces start from the top of the organization and radiate down into the rest of the workplace, but there are microcultures inside of teams that you definitely will have more influence over, again, if you are leading that organization. I know I've worked at some really awesome companies, but the specific org that I was in was really, really toxic. And now you can also question how that was allowed from the highest level leaders. But the reality is that people can have some really different work experiences depending on who their direct manager or leader is. So again, here we are today to talk about the 6 ways that you can prevent a toxic workplace as a leader. So let's dive in. So number 1, set clear expectations and hold people accountable to those. So this is both the what and the how. This is letting people know very clearly and very specifically what they are responsible for, what their deliverables are, the type of work that they need to be focused on, the top priorities, and how you expect them to get it done. Now, this isn't that you want to micromanage everything and you're that's absolutely not anything you want to be doing if you want to prevent a toxic workplace. But if you set a very clear expectation at these are the deliverables, this is what needs to get done, and even engaging people on the team to kind of even help set what those priorities are, brainstorming as a team, that's even better if that's possible. So that's the what. The how is actually like the behaviors and those soft skills and those values that you expect your team to uphold. So it's great if your team's bringing in the top sales, but if they are doing it unethically, if they are lying to get the deals, if they are, you know, bashing other people, other customers or other competitors or whatever, or they're just, you know, creating, such a chaotic workplace for everybody to be in, the results that they got now all of a sudden aren't as valuable or aren't as important because how they got to that end state is just so distracting or just, again, not living to the values that you're expecting people to live to. So again, be very clear about the type of work, the outcomes, the deliverables, and those timelines, and just how we expect people to show up and engage with each other, right? So it's the what and the how that we want to be super clear about. Then we have to actually hold people accountable to those expectations, right? We want to reward and recognize those positive behaviors that we're observing, that we're seeing. We want to be highlighting people that are doing a really great job. But then we also want to be dealing with issues immediately. When I worked in HR, this is what I would see that could derail a team so quickly is not having clear expectations. People are confused about what they should be working on. It's kind of chaotic. People are feeling kind of, like they don't have a direction. And then whenever issues crop up or maybe there's some conflict or something like that, and that's not dealt with immediately from the manager, that can really create this toxic workplace where people, again, just don't feel like they want to come to work and do their best work, or they feel like they can't do their best work. So the next way to help prevent toxic workplaces as a leader is to kind of piggyback off of this first one, which is to communicate clearly, often, and transparently. We want to be sharing what's going on more broadly within the organization. Sometimes we can get so deep or just so kind of tunnel vision into our own departments that we kind of forget about what's going on in the larger organizations. And sometimes we just don't understand the work that we're doing or why we're doing it and how it connects to anything else. So, this is your role as a leader to start trickling down that information about what's going on within the broader organization. This also really helps to keep that rumor mill at bay as well. If you're constantly sharing information and you're not holding things close to your chest all the time. You're not hoarding information or gatekeeping information. This can really help, again, keep that rumor mill at bay because you're sharing the information. People will um, fill the void. If there's a void in information or a void in communication, they will fill that void with usually the worst thing possible, right? So it's really important that you are constantly disseminating that information down into your teams. Now, when I say, communicating clearly, oftenly, and transparently, this doesn't mean that you're sharing all the deep, dark secrets or information that is, or plans that maybe aren't ready for prime time yet. Maybe you haven't worked through all of the scenarios, you haven't worked through everything as a leadership team yet, and it's not quite ready to be shared with other people. Going out and communicating too early sometimes whenever the plan is half baked, that can also create lots of rumors, that can also create uncertainty and chaos and things like that. So when I say sharing transparently, it's sharing when it's appropriate to do that, or when things are a little bit more baked, or you have a little bit more information to share, or you're just super clear about, hey, we're having conversations around this project, or we're having conversations around this direction. It's not fully baked yet. We haven't made all the decisions yet, but I just want to keep you in the loop. You have to, again, decide as a leader what is important to share with your team. It's going to depend on the levels and experience levels of the people on your team. And it's going to depend just kind of on the personality of the team and the sensitivity of the information. So you're going to need to use your judgment there. But I find that more often than not, communicating more than you think you should, typically is the right way to go. And so you can do this by having regular one on ones with your team, having team meetings. And what this does is it enables you to have a two-way street with conversation. So, again, you're able to share what's going on, um, kind of above you in the organization, what else is happening in the company. And it's allowing your team to have a safe space to come to you and ask you questions, or for you just to keep an eye on what's going on your team. If there's like conflict that's happening within the team, if you've got people that are kind of loose in the saddle, or they're just not super excited about what's going on, or they're confused. Again, you having regular one-on-ones and regular team meetings, this creates that safe and open place that people know they can come to you and have these conversations. So this helps you keep an eye on and keep a pulse on what's happening inside of your team so that you aren't blindsided on, again, conflict or issues or situations going on. And again, this is where we want to encourage open discussion, knowledge sharing, where again, we all feel like we have a voice and that we're encouraged to share it. So the third thing that you can do as a leader to ensure you don't have a toxic workplace on your hands is to encourage collaboration instead of competition. So we want to make sure that we're giving credit where credit is due, that we're not pitting employees or teams against each other. We're not doing this whole us versus them thing. I would see this a lot when I worked in corporate HR. I thought this was always so interesting, where just like these artificial lines and barriers and hierarchies that we would create. This team works in California and this team works in North Carolina. And then all of a sudden, just what that does is that creates some level of division or some level of competition. Why does the California team get to do this thing and we don't get to do this thing? Maybe you have some employees who work remotely or work hybrid, and you have some employees that must come into the office for whatever reason. They just have to do that, or that's a policy. You know, why is it that such and such gets to work from home and I don't get to work from home, right? So, where you are able to create standard process, standard policies and practice, and encourage that collaboration instead of competition, that's going to help you keep ensure that, again, your teammates and your employees want to work together and not work against each other. Because I've seen definitely in toxic workplaces where people just try to one up each other. People start taking credit for other people's work. And that's not something that you want to have to get in the middle of, right? That's not something that you're going to want to have to manage. So, making sure, again, if you are communicating expectations clearly and you're having regular one-on-ones and you know what's going on in your team, it's less likely that you're going to have people throwing people under the bus or having this toxicity where people are just battling it out with each other. And you need to make sure that you're not playing favorites amongst the team, right? So that people don't feel like they have to battle it out or one up each other to get your attention or to get your praise or to get your recognition. So the more that you are regularly rewarding and recognizing those positive behaviors that we talked about, you're having those regular conversations with people, that in and of itself is going to encourage collaboration instead of competition. The fourth thing you can do to help prevent a toxic work environment is just making sure people have the resources that they need to get their jobs done and be successful. And this is going to start with hiring well right out the gate. This is going to start with ensuring that you are super clear about the type of work that your team is working on, the volume of work, and therefore you know the type of person that you might need to bring on the team. So you are hiring for the right roles at the right time, and you're putting them in the right chair or in the right seat on the bus, so that we could all be moving forward. So that starts there, about figuring out what's the work and what's the volume and what is it that we need this person to do, and then going out and finding that person that, again, amplifies the values that you are expecting your team to adhere to, that they're going to be able to get the job done, not only deliver on those expectations, but again, that they are going to be that culture add, and that they are going to be behaving in the way that you expect your team to be behaving. So it starts with hiring well, having a full staff of employees that can actually get the work done. Now, I know this can be a really, really tough thing for as a leader, because I get it, especially right now out there. Budgets are tight. We've maybe laid off some people. We've frozen hiring budgets, but we need to be able to give people the resources they need to be successful. And sometimes that means adding to the team. And if you are not able to add to the team or make sure you're bringing in you're not staffed at the way that you'd like to be, then we need to start thinking about, okay, what are some things that we can delay, take off the plate, or what are some things that we can simplify a little bit more, so that we aren't constantly asking our employees to do more with less. If there is anything that you hear anything from me today, this idea of asking our employees to consistently, constantly, long term, asking them to do more with less, that is a really great way to create a toxic burnout work environment for your team. And they are going to leave you. And then you're going to be in worse shape than if you would have maybe adjusted timelines a little bit, adjusted expectations, or adjusted workload in order to fit the current budget situation. Now, again, I've been there. I get it that there are times and situations where all the resources are short, and you might need to ask somebody to do more than what than maybe capacity is, or driving towards a certain short-term outcome, or you're closing out the quarter, or whatever you're doing. I get that there might be some times throughout the year that that's necessary, but that cannot be a consistent message that you are saying over and over again, quarter after quarter, year after year. Again, you're going to burn out your team. It's going to be a toxic work environment because what do people do whenever they are pushed to the max and they feel like there is no end in sight? They end up behaving and performing in a way that is probably not the expectations that or that you have, or just again they're not going to be behaving or performing in a way that is conducive to that positive and healthy safe work environment. So it's really important that we are staffed appropriately, or if we're not staffed appropriately, that we have adjusted expectations and adjusted the workload. We also need to make sure that we are training our employees right from the get-go, that we have a really great way to onboard our new team members so that they can be brought up to speed really quickly. I don't know about you, but I hate being a beginner. Like it's so interesting because there's a part of me that loves new things and novel things and fresh starts. Like that feels really good and I love that. But then there are other ways, though, on the other side to that coin is that I hate being a beginner. It's really uncomfortable being a beginner. And so I bet your employees feel that way as well. So it's really important to bring people in and train them up really, really well right from the get-go so that they can feel like they can contribute and that they kind of have a little bit of control over things and they feel like they're able to rock and roll really soon, because your top performers, that's what they want, right? They want to come in, they want to do a really great job, they want to make a big impact, and setting them up in the right way right from the beginning is going to be so critical here. Then we want to make sure that we are also providing ongoing training and support. So as we're seeing just like this economy and these industries, we are moving so fast. Things are changing so fast that we have to continue to support our employees in giving them the training that they need, giving them the ongoing support in this way so that they can continue growing and developing in their career. And again, continuing to perform in the way that I know that they want to perform as well. This also means giving people the tools that they need. You know, what are some tools out there, especially if you are in a place where, you know, you're not really able to hire people, you're not able to be as fully staffed as you'd like to be. Where are some places that you can invest maybe in some tools or some automations, or maybe carve out some time in order to again streamline some like legacy processes that might be bogging things down so that you can free up time for your employees. So what are some of those tools that you might be able to invest a little bit of money in upfront, that's not as high as an employee salary and benefits, but might at least be able to, again, help them be able to just do the job really well, do their job in the way that they need to do the job. And again, finally, just giving people the time to do their work, right? I know this was definitely me when I was in corporate, but I'm seeing this also with my clients, is just having your employees in meetings all day long, especially if they're remote, because a lot of times whenever we have remote teams or we just have people that, we just have dispersed teams, right? This is a global economy. If people are working all over the world and trying to collaborate together, we're getting on virtual calls and it's really easy to stack those back to back to back to back. And then all of a sudden it's the end of the day and you've been in 8 hours worth of meetings. And when does the actual work get done? Right? It ends up happening at night and on the weekends. And we need to be giving our teams and our employees and ourselves, frankly, the white space on our calendars, in this blank space on our calendars, in order to do the work, in order to do the thinking, do the critical thinking and the strategic thinking about our jobs, right? So, if you're feeling like, man, I'm in a lot of meetings, I'm feeling like my team might also be in a lot of meetings, maybe it's time to sit down and just kind of revisit that. I actually encourage people to sit down and take a look at their calendars every quarter just to be like, is this where I need to be spending my time? Am I spending my time in the right places? If it's in a bunch of meetings, or again, working through a bunch of processes that are just really bogging down the system, I encourage you every quarter just to kind of sit down and take a look at all of those, just to kind of see where can we make some adjustments, because If you want your employees to perform really well, you got to give them the time to do it, right? And if you're not giving them the time to do it, this is where burnout, toxicity starts to creep in, because then people are getting really, really bitter and really sour about the fact that they just don't have time to get their job done. And they don't feel like the leadership team is listening to them or supporting them in trying to do that. So again, you need to give people the resources that they need to be successful. That means making sure that we're staffed properly for the amount of work that we have. We are training really well right from the beginning of an employee's time on your team and that ongoing training. And then we're giving them the tools that they need to be successful. And frankly, the biggest thing I think out of all of this is just giving them the time and the autonomy to get that work done. So the fifth thing that we need to do as leaders to ensure we have an open, safe, and productive work environment is prioritizing and encouraging time off and well-being. So I know that it can be really easy for us to say, yeah, do some yoga at lunch, yeah, take that vacation, take those days off. But then we message our team after hours. We send a text message at 10 o'clock because you had an idea or there's some escalation that's happened, right? We need to make sure that we are keeping work conversations as much as we can during work hours. I, unless you are an open heart surgeon, unless you are a firefighter or an EMS, frontline sort of emergency responder, I really encourage you to think through if the message that you are sending, the escalation that you are sending, does that really need to be solved right now at 10 o'clock at night? Does it really need to be solved on a Saturday afternoon? Now, again, depending on the world that you live in, the type of business that you're in, maybe that's the right thing. But I would think about, how do we make sure that we're not making our employees be on and constantly on for work and thinking about work and wondering, if something's going to come up 24/7. Because again, that's a really great way that toxicity and burnout creeps into our workplace. So I encourage you to keep work conversations to work out hours. I mean, you need to have boundaries around this as well, for yourself, for your own sanity, for your own productivity. But we also want that for our team as well. Now, if you, for whatever reason, you're like, I'm going to send an email or I'm going to send messages after hours because that's your version of flexibility. Maybe you, cut out of work a little bit early because you're picking up your kid from school or something like that. So then you get back online later on at night and crank out some emails at night. That's totally fine. That's totally cool. If that works for you. But you need to explain that to your team. I actually had a manager who did this early on in my career. She would send emails after dinner and on Sundays. And so that made me feel like I needed to do the same thing, or that I needed to respond. And so finally she took me aside at one point and just said, Nicole, I leave here like at 3 o'clock because I go pick up my son every day from school. And then I want to spend really, really focused present time with him, through dinner time. And then after dinner, then, I hop back on my laptop and I, kind of crank through some emails, which works for me. Same thing on the weekends. I guess she shared that like he would go down for a nap or he had some activity on a Sunday afternoon that it was a really great way for her to then get some work done. So it's important for you to just share like, hey, just because I'm sending you an email right now doesn't mean that I'm expecting you to respond. Maybe sending text messages is not the best way to communicate with your team. Or maybe you say, I might send you a Slack message or an instant message, but that doesn't mean that I need you to respond. If I need you to respond, I'll contact you in this way if it's truly an emergency. So maybe you get together with your team and you decide what those rules of engagement are for everyone, on how you're going to escalate some things, or how are, if there's a crisis or an emergency of some kind, maybe you work out a deal around, hey, I'm going to contact you this way, but only in an emergency. Otherwise, if you see a message from me, know that you don't have to respond until, the next time you are during your working hours. So I had a leader one time say something to the effect that, well, I'm not going to say that to my team. I'm not going to tell my team that they don't have to respond because, they should be mature enough just to know that. Okay, fine. Should your senior leaders be mature enough to know that? Maybe. But that the tone in which she said it and some other things that she shared in that moment made me believe that maybe she's part of the problem of this toxic work environment that she was describing. Again, if we go back to a couple of points ago on our second point in communicating clearly and often, and our first point where you're setting expectations, that you know, if this is how you want to operate in this way that, it works for you to send messages off at midnight, that's totally fine. But once again, have an adult conversation with your employees about, again, your expectations around that. And then actually, when we're talking about prioritizing time off and well-being and things like that, you have to actually give people a time off, right? We have to actually give them that space and give them that safety that they can take the time off, and the wheels are not going to fall off. So this goes back to our point around make sure that we're training people, we're cross training, we're having team meetings so people know what's going on. So if someone is off on vacation, they can truly be off and they don't have to check in because either somebody else is aware of what's going on and they can pick up an issue should it arise, or again, we just set the expectations that, hey, anytime somebody's off, they are off. We do not contact them. There is absolutely nothing in this business that needs to be escalated to this person when they are on vacation. Or again, we set expectations around if this happens or this happens, I will contact you. Otherwise, I'm not contacting you. Take your email off your phone, take your Slack off your phone, because it is really important to have a full, clean rest period, rest time, whatever that looks like, in order for people to really come back refreshed, rejuvenated, and ready to hop back into work. So finally, we are at our last point on how to prevent a toxic work environment within your organization. And this last point is that you also need to model all of these behaviors and actions yourself. So you need to make sure that you are managing up with your leadership team and ensuring that you're getting those clear expectations from them, that you're getting the communication that you need from them, and that you are advocating for your team, right? Everything kind of funnels up through you. And if your team has an ask, we need extra headcount, we need additional budget for tools or something like that. You need to be That's the role that you need to be playing, right? As that advocate for your team. You also need to be demonstrating that you are going to collaborate with other departments and your leadership team and your peers as well. If your team hears shit talking another team or bad mouthing a peer or something like that, like, teams feel that. Even if you don't say that that's what's happening, your team will feel that tension and feel that competition with each other. I have a client I'm working with right now, and they're really being super intentional about building a really positive collaborative relationship with their team member, with some of their peers and a peer team that they have to collaborate often with, because the relationship has been strained for a while. And my client said something to me about, well, my director on my team and the director on the other team, like, they're not getting along. And my question was, why do you think that is? Or what do you think's going on there? And they're like, well, myself and their boss don't get along. Like, okay, well, again, even if you don't say anything, even if you're not spilling the tea or whatever about whatever conflict y'all are in, people can feel that tension. People can really feel that trickling down within that team. So again, this all starts with you. So making sure that if you're expecting collaboration amongst teams and amongst departments, then you also need to be demonstrating that as well. And also, you need to be taking clean rest and clean time off. You need to be using your PTO. I remember whenever the pandemic first hit, what we were seeing was that people weren't taking their vacation time, they were taking their PTO because people were like, well, I have nowhere to go. I got nothing to do. So why waste my vacation time? And But the other side to that was that, again, our teams were burning out. They were exhausted. Everyone just needed a break, right? If you can remember back to those early days of the pandemic, we all still need a break, right? But particularly at that time, people just really, really needed to be able to kind of decompress and relax after kind of the chaos that we were experiencing at that particular time. And so what I told one of the leaders of the organization I was with at the time, I was like, you need to take a day or two or a week or whatever. And I was like, and make a big stink about it. Send out a note, be really big about it. Hey, I'm taking a couple days off for my mental health. I need some rest and rejuvenation time with my family. I'm going to be completely out of pocket. I know you all are going, can handle anything that comes your way while I'm out. Of course, if there's an emergency, here's how to get a hold of me. I know as a leader that you want to say that, oh, well, I don't want to go on vacation and feel like my team has to fend for themselves, that that I'm not going to be supportive of them, that I'm just, leaving them high and dry. That's not true, right? You're not leaving them high and dry. If you've set clear expectations, if you've communicated clearly, if people know, if people been cross-trained, people can handle things. Like if you have really empowered your team to be successful, they will rise to the occasion. I promise. But if you continue to put out this message that, I'm available, should anything go wrong, blah, 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 that's sending them a message that they can't fully step away, that they don't want to leave the team high and dry if they go on vacation, because again, that's probably not true. It's probably however long people are taking time off, it's highly unlikely that there is something that only they can solve or only they can fix. There might be a couple of things, right? And again, you just set those expectations and be really clear about that. But otherwise, if you can demonstrate that, hey, I trust you, you team can totally handle anything that's happened. I've cross-trained all of you. You all know where all the information is, or you know who my backup is going to be. You will all be fine. You've got this. I totally know that you've got this. If they see that and you empower them, they are more apt to be able to, again, rise to the occasion and also take that clean rest and that clean time off when it comes time for them to taking time off as well. So again, if you want to ensure that you don't have a toxic work environment in your organization, you want to prevent that, you have to be modeling all of these behaviors and actions yourself. So as a recap, here are the 6 ways that you can prevent a toxic workplace as a leader. 1, you're going to set clear expectations and hold people accountable to that, the good and the bad. You're going to communicate clearly, often, and transparently. And you're going to have regular one-on-ones and regular team meetings where you create that safe and open environment for people to share ideas and have discussion. You're going to encourage collaboration instead of competition. You're going to give people the resources that they need to be successful, including the time to get their work done. And you're going to prioritize and encourage time off and well-being. And once again, you're going to do all of these things yourself. You're going to walk this walk, and you are going to model this behavior for everyone else as well. So by doing all of these things, you will create a positive, open, and psychologically safe environment for everyone to come to work and do their best, because I truly believe that is what people want to do. People want to come to work and do well, but that is hard to do in a toxic work environment. And as leaders, we play the biggest role in creating that culture. So thank you for joining me here today. And if you like this content, head over to my website at NicoleCaseSpeaks.com/newsletter and sign up for my weekly newsletter, where I share even more valuable information like this, including being the first to know when new podcast episodes drop, where I'm speaking at next, and other really critical, important information for you to succeed in your work. So I will see you over there. And until next time, remember, your career deserves an upgrade.